Maya Collins sat in the last row of the classroom, her notebook open in front of her. She had been attending advanced combat theory at the Galactic Military Academy for 3 weeks now. In all that time, she had barely spoken a word to anyone. The other students had stopped trying to talk to her after the first few days. Now they treated her like she was just another piece of furniture in the room. She was there, but nobody really paid attention to her. The classroom was huge and shaped like a circle. Rows of seats went down toward the center, where there was a large fighting platform. Above the platform, holographic screens floated in the air, showing battles from different planets across the galaxy. The images moved and shifted, showing soldiers fighting in different environments and conditions. The instructor was a tall alien named Zulkar. He belonged to a species called the Crethians, and had 4 arms instead of 2. His skin was a dark purple color, and his eyes were bright yellow. He walked back and forth on the platform as he talked, moving all 4 of his arms to make his points clearer. Zulkar had fought in 40 different wars on 40 different planets. Everyone at the academy knew his reputation and respected him. Today, Zulkar was talking about the mental side of fighting. He spoke in a loud, clear voice that echoed through the big room. His words were careful and precise, the way someone talks when they have thought about something for a very long time. Fighting is not just about your body, Zulkar said, sweeping one of his arms toward the holographic displays. Any fool can throw a punch or fire a weapon. True combat happens in the mind first. If you understand how your enemy thinks, you have already won the battle before it even starts. Maya wrote this down in her notebook. Her handwriting was neat and organized. She took notes on everything Zulkar said, even the small details that other students ignored. Around her, the other students whispered to each other and moved in their seats. Some were paying attention, but many were not. The students came from 17 different alien species. Each species looked completely different from the others. The Valxians had skin that looked like crystal or glass. Their bodies could actually bounce back energy weapons, which made them hard to hurt in a fight. The Gormath were huge and covered in thick muscles. Their skin was gray and hard, like stone. They were so strong that they could lift things that would crush most other species. The Seer walked on 4 legs and had 6 arms. In close combat, they were incredibly dangerous because they could attack from so many angles at once. And then, there was Maya. She was human. She came from a planet called Earth, and Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. Most species in the galaxy knew about Earth, but not many wanted to visit it. They thought it was too dangerous. The stories about Earth made it sound like a nightmare world where everything was trying to kill you all the time. Maya was small compared to most of the other students. She was only about 165 centimeters tall, which was short by galactic standards. Her build was thin and lean. She had brown hair that she kept tied back, and brown eyes that rarely showed much emotion. To the other students, she probably looked weak, harmless, nothing to worry about. Zulkar stopped walking and turned to face the class. His yellow eyes scanned the rows of students until they landed on Maya in the back row. She was looking down at her notebook, writing something. "Collins," Zulkar called out. His voice cut through all the whispered conversations in the room. Everyone went quiet. Maya looked up slowly. She did not seem surprised or nervous. She just looked at the instructor and waited. "You have been very quiet these past 3 weeks," Zulkar continued. "You take notes on everything, but you never share your thoughts. Tell the class something. What does your species think is the most important part of combat?" The room was completely silent now. Every student was looking at Maya. Some looked curious. Others looked amused. A few looked like they had forgotten she was even in the class, until now. Maya thought about the question for a moment. Then she spoke in a voice that was quiet but clear. Survival. The word hung in the air like smoke. It felt heavy somehow, though nobody could quite explain why. A large Gormath student named Krell sat a few rows in front of Maya. He turned around in his seat to look at her and made a snorting sound. Survival? That is what Prey thinks about. Warriors think about winning. Several other students laughed at this. The Gormath were known for their warrior culture. They believed that strength was the most important thing in the universe. To them, Maya's answer probably sounded cowardly. Maya did not react to the laughter. She just looked at Krell for a second, then went back to writing in her notebook. Her face showed no anger, no embarrassment, nothing. She simply returned to her notes as if nothing had happened. But Zulkar did not laugh. He stood very still on the platform, all four of his arms now hanging at his sides. He was looking at Maya with an expression that might have been respect or might have been caution. It was hard to tell. Zulkar had read Maya's file before she joined his class. He knew things that the other students did not know. He knew what Class 12 meant. He knew that Earth was a planet where the weather could kill you, where tiny organisms invisible to the eye caused deadly diseases, where the animals had evolved to be efficient killers, where even the plants could be poisonous. He knew that humans had climbed to the top of their food chain not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they refused to give up. Ever. Interesting, Zulkar said slowly. The word came out carefully, like he was handling something dangerous. Perhaps we will talk more about that perspective later. The class continued with the lesson. Zulkar went back to talking about battle tactics and military strategy. The holographic displays showed more footage of famous battles. Students took notes or pretended to take notes. Everything seemed normal again. The practical combat class happened every week on the same day. The students called it Tuesday, though that was just the name the Academy used for one of the days in their 7-day schedule. Real Tuesday from Earth meant nothing out here in space, where different planets had different lengths of days and years. But the Academy ran on a standard calendar to keep things simple. The gymnasium where they held practical combat was enormous. The ceiling was so high that you could barely see it. The floor could change its gravity settings, making things heavier or lighter depending on what the instructor wanted. The terrain could shift too, creating hills or obstacles or different surfaces to fight on. Today the settings were simple. Normal gravity, flat floor, no obstacles, just basic hand-to-hand combat practice. Maya had not participated in any of the practical classes yet. For the first month, she had a medical excuse. The official reason was that her body needed time to adjust to the space station's atmosphere. The station used a mixture of gases that worked for most species, but it was different from Earth's air. The medical excuse said she needed time to adapt, but that was not the real reason. The real reason was that the Academy did not know how to classify Maya yet. They did not know if she was dangerous or harmless. They did not know what a human could actually do in a fight. Earth was a Class 12 Deathworld, which meant it was one of the most dangerous planets known to the galactic community. But humans themselves were a mystery. They looked weak and soft, but the stories about them were confusing and often contradictory. Today, the medical excuse had expired. Maya walked into the gymnasium wearing the standard Academy combat clothes. They were loose and comfortable, made from a material that stretched and moved easily. The outfit was gray with blue stripes on the sides. Every student wore the same thing during practical classes. She stood at the edge of the training floor with the other students. Some of them glanced at her, curious to see what she would do. Most ignored her, focused on their own preparations for the sparring matches. Zulkar stood in the center of the gymnasium. His forearms were crossed over his chest as he looked at all the students gathered around him. "Today, you will work in pairs," he announced. "Sparring matches. I want to see what you have learned from our theory discussions. Show me that you understand combat, not just physically, but mentally." He began calling out names, pairing students together. Usually, the pairings made sense. Students of similar size and skill level were matched up. It gave everyone a fair chance to practice and learn. The Valxians sparred with other Valxians. The Seer paired up together. The Gormoth, being so large and strong, were carefully matched with others who could handle their power. Maya waited for her name to be called. She expected to be paired with someone small, maybe one of the Seer, or perhaps a Valxian. She did not expect what happened next. "Collins," Zulkar called out in his loud, clear voice. "You will spar with Krell." The entire gymnasium went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every student turned to look. First at Maya, then at Krell, then back at Maya again. Krell was the Academy champion. He had won every single combat tournament for the past 2 years. He stood almost 3 meters tall, twice as tall as Maya. His body was covered in thick gray skin that looked like stone. His arms were as thick as small trees. His hands could probably wrap around Maya's entire body. He was, by every measurement the Academy used, the strongest and most dangerous fighter in their class. Maya looked at Zulkar. Her face showed no fear, but her voice was quiet and careful when she spoke. "Instructor, I do not think that is a good pairing." End quote. Krell stepped forward before Zulkar could respond. The big Gormoth's footsteps made the floor shake slightly. "Why not?" he rumbled. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Are you afraid, human?" Maya turned to look at Krell. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Krell laughed. It was a loud, harsh sound that echoed through the gymnasium. Other students started laughing too, though some of them sounded uncertain. "Sending me to medical?" Krell said, still laughing. "You are half my size. You look like I could break you with one hand." "You probably could," Maya agreed. Her voice stayed calm and level. "If you could catch me. And if I let you." The laughter died away. Something about the way Maya spoke made it clear she was not joking. She was not trying to sound tough or impressive. She was just stating what she believed to be facts. Krell's expression changed. The amusement disappeared, replaced by anger. His culture valued strength above everything else. To the Gormoth, suggesting that size and power did not matter was an insult. "Step onto the mat," he growled. "Let us see if your words mean anything." Maya stayed where she was. She did not move toward the sparring mat. "No," she said. "What?" Krell's voice rose. "I said no. I am not going to fight you." Maya looked at Krell, then at Zulkar, then back at Krell. "You are not my enemy. You are my classmate. I have no reason to hurt you just to prove something I already know is true." Krell's massive hands curled into fists. His whole body was tense with anger. "You insult me. You say you could beat me, but you will not even try? That is cowardice." "No," Maya said quietly. "That is wisdom. There is a difference." Zulkar raised one of his 4 hands, signaling for silence. The instructor stepped between Maya and Krell, though he was careful not to get too close to either of them. "Enough," he said firmly. "Krell, you will pair with Thane for today's sparring. Collins, you will observe this session. Report to my office after class ends." Krell looked like he wanted to argue, but you did not argue with Zulkar. Not if you wanted to stay at the academy. The big Gormoth turned and walked away, his footsteps heavy with anger. He joined another Gormoth student named Thane on one of the sparring mats. Maya walked to the side of the gymnasium and sat down on a bench. From there, she could watch the other students as they practiced. She did not look upset or worried. She just looked tired, like someone who had dealt with this kind of situation before and knew exactly how it would end if it continued. The sparring matches began. Students fought in pairs, testing their skills against each other. Some matches were close and competitive. Others ended quickly, when one student was clearly better than the other. Throughout it all, Maya sat on the bench and watched. She was not taking notes this time. She was just watching, learning, observing how each species moved. how they attacked, how they defended, and occasionally, her eyes would drift to Krell. The big Gormath was fighting with controlled anger, taking out his frustration on his sparring partner. He was strong and skilled. There was no doubt about that. But Maya watched him with the same calm expression she always had, like she was looking at a problem she already knew how to solve. When the class finally ended, the students left the gymnasium, in SM Maya, went to the observation deck, instead of Zulkar's office. The observation deck was one of her favorite places on the station. It was a large room with transparent walls that looked out into space. From here, you could see the stars stretching out in every direction. You could see ships coming and going from the docking bay. Sometimes you could even see nearby planets or moons passing by. It was quiet here. Most students preferred the recreation areas or the cafeteria or their rooms. The observation deck was usually empty, which was exactly why Maya liked it. She could come here to think without being disturbed. She stood at the window, looking out at the darkness of space. Earth was somewhere out there, very far away. She wondered what was happening there right now. What season it was, whether it was day or night in the city where she grew up. She had been away from home for almost 6 months now. Sometimes it felt like 6 years. An hour passed while she stood there. The stars did not change. Space looked the same as it always did. Vast and dark and endless. Maya found it peaceful in a strange way. Space was dangerous, but it was honest about its dangers. It did not hide what it was. Unlike people, who often hid their true intentions until it was too late. She heard footsteps behind her. Heavy footsteps that made the floor vibrate slightly with each step. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. "You embarrassed me." Krell's voice rumbled through the quiet room. Maya did not turn around. She kept looking at the stars. "I tried not to fight you. How does that embarrass you? You told everyone you could defeat me in seconds. You made me look weak in front of the entire class." The anger in his voice was clear. "Nobody has ever spoken to me that way." "I told you the truth," Maya said calmly. "I am sorry if the truth hurt your pride, but I was trying to help you avoid actual hurt." She heard Krell take another step closer. "I challenge you, officially, tomorrow in the combat arena. Full rules. No medical excuses. No running away. I will show the entire academy that humans are nothing special." Finally, Maya turned around to face him. In the dim light of the observation deck, her eyes looked darker than usual. Older somehow. "Let me tell you something about Earth, Krell." Krell crossed his massive arms, waiting. He expected her to make more threats or brag about how tough humans were. Instead, Maya spoke quietly, almost gently. "My planet has gravity that is probably twice what you are comfortable with. If you visited Earth, you would feel like you were moving underwater. Everything would be harder. Your muscles would tire quickly." She took a step toward him. Surprisingly, Krell took a step back. "Our atmosphere has a lot of oxygen in it, more than most planets. That oxygen makes fires burn hotter and spread faster. A small spark can become a massive fire in seconds." She continued walking slowly toward him, and he continued backing away. "We have storms that can destroy entire cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, temperature changes that can kill you if you are not prepared. In some places on Earth, it can be hot enough to boil water during the day, and cold enough to freeze water at night." Krell's back hit the wall. He had nowhere left to retreat. Maya stopped a few meters away from him, giving him space but making her point clear. "But you know what the really dangerous part is?" Maya asked. "Everything on my planet is trying to survive. And that means everything is trying to either kill something else or avoid being killed. Our plants can be poisonous. Our insects carry diseases. Our predators hunt in groups with strategy and communication. They plan. They coordinate. They think." Her voice stayed level, never rising above a conversational tone, but every word seemed to carry weight. And humans. We did not get to the top of the food chain by being the biggest or the strongest. We are not the fastest runners. Our teeth are not very sharp. Our sense of smell is weak compared to Earth predators. But we have something else. We refuse to quit. We adapt. We learn. We outlast everything that tries to kill us. Krell was breathing heavily now. His earlier confidence had disappeared. He was listening. Really listening. Probably for the first time since he met Maya. So when I tell you I can defeat you in 6 seconds, I am not bragging. I am warning you. My species has been fighting for survival since before we could walk upright. Combat is not a game to us. It is not a sport. It is not about pride or proving we are strong. It is a tool. A last resort. And if you force me to use that tool against you, the result will not be fun for either of us. The observation deck was very quiet. The only sound was Krell's heavy breathing and the soft hum of the station's life support systems. The challenge stands, Krell said. But his voice was quieter now. Less certain. Tomorrow. The arena. Be there. I will be there. Maya said. But remember that I gave you a choice. I tried to warn you. What happens next is on you. Not me. Krell left quickly, his footsteps echoing down the hallway outside. Maya watched him go, then turned back to the window and the stars beyond. That was quite a speech, a voice said from the shadows near the doorway. Maya was not surprised. How long were you there, Instructor Zulkar? The four-armed alien stepped into the dim light. Long enough. I heard everything. Are you going to stop the challenge? No, Zulkar said, walking over to stand beside her at the window. Maya sighed. People are going to think humans are violent. They are going to be afraid of us. No, Zulkar said thoughtfully. They are going to learn that humans are survivors, and they are going to learn that there is a big difference between being violent and being capable of violence. One is a choice. The other is a necessity. They stood in silence for a moment, both looking out at the stars. I read your file, Zulkar continued. Your whole file, not just the basic information. I know about the survival training all humans go through. I know about your military history, your wars, your evolution. It is remarkable. Really. Most species develop weapons and warfare after they achieve space travel. Humans had complex military strategies before you even invented writing. We had a lot of practice, Maya said quietly. Earth gave us no choice but to get good at survival. And surviving meant competing with other humans for resources. It is not something we are proud of. But it is something you understand, Zulkar said. Better than any other species in the galaxy. And that understanding makes you dangerous, yes. But it also makes you valuable, because you know when to fight and when not to fight. You know the real cost of violence. He turned to face her directly. Tomorrow, in the arena, I want you to teach that lesson, not just to Krell, but to every student who will be watching. Show them what it means to be from a D. The combat arena was completely full. Every seat was taken. Students who could not find seats were standing in the back or sitting on the stairs. Word had spread through the entire academy about the challenge match. The small human girl versus the undefeated champion. Nobody wanted to miss it. The arena itself was circular, with a flat fighting area in the center. Around the edges was a glowing energy barrier that would keep the fighters inside but allow the audience to see everything clearly. Above, cameras floated in the air, recording the match from multiple angles. These fights were usually reviewed later in class to help students learn from what they saw. Maya entered through one of the side doors. She wore the same simple combat clothes she always wore, gray and blue, loose and comfortable. No armor, no padding, no weapons, just her. The crowd made various sounds when they saw her. Some cheered, some laughed. Many just whispered to each other, wondering what was about to happen. Maya did not look at any of them. She walked straight to the center of the arena and waited. Then Krell entered from the opposite door. The crowd's reaction was much louder this time. Cheering, stomping feet, calls of encouragement. Krell was popular at the academy. He had earned respect through his fighting skills and his victories in tournaments. People expected him to win this easily. Krell wore full combat plating over his body. The armor was designed for Gormuth anatomy, covering his chest, arms, and legs, while still allowing him to move freely. In his hands, he carried a training staff. The staff was as tall as Maya and as thick as her arm. It could deliver electrical shocks, strong enough to stun most species. The rules allowed fighters to use equipment that was normal for their species. Krell was using every advantage he had. The two fighters stood facing each other across the arena. The size difference was incredible. Krell looked like he could simply step on Maya and end the fight. Many in the crowd probably thought that was exactly what would happen. Zulkar walked to the center of the arena, standing between them. His 4 arms were spread wide, making sure both fighters were paying attention. This is an official challenge match. The rules are standard. First person to submit loses. First person to fall unconscious loses. First person to leave the ring loses. Do both fighters understand? Yes, Krell said loudly. His voice carried confidence. I understand, Maya said quietly. Then let the match begin. Zulkar moved quickly to the edge of the arena, leaving the two fighters alone in the center. For a moment, neither moved. They just looked at each other. Then, Krell charged. He was surprisingly fast for someone so big. His feet pounded against the arena floor as he closed the distance between them. The training staff came up and then swung down in a powerful overhead strike. If that blow connected, it would have stunned Maya instantly. But Maya was not there when the staff came down. She had moved to the side so smoothly that it looked easy. The staff hit the floor with a loud crack. Krell spun, bringing the staff around in a wide horizontal sweep. Maya ducked under it. She still had not raised her hands to fight or defend. She was just moving, staying out of range of Krell's attacks. The crowd started murmuring. This was not what they expected. Maya was not trying to block or counterattack. She was just avoiding, making Krell chase her around the arena like he was trying to swat a fly. Stand still and fight, Krell shouted. Frustration was creeping into his voice. Why? Maya asked. She was not even breathing hard yet. You are doing all the work for me. It was true. Krell was already starting to breathe heavily. He was swinging the staff with all his strength, putting his full body weight into each attack. But every attack missed, and every miss cost him energy. His movements were getting slightly slower, slightly less controlled. Maya, on the other hand, looked like she could keep this up all day. Because she could. Humans were built for endurance. On Earth, early humans had hunted by simply following prey animals for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Other predators were faster in short bursts, but nothing could outlast a human over long distances. Krell attacked again, this time with a series of quick strikes. Staff high, staff low, staff middle. He was trying to overwhelm her with speed and power. Maya wove through the attacks like water flowing around rocks. Her movements were small and efficient. She wasted no energy on large dodges or flashy moves. Just simple, effective evasion. The crowd was silent now. They were beginning to understand what they were watching. This was not a fight. This was a lesson. Krell swung with everything he had. A massive overhead strike that would have ended the match if it connected. Maya did something different this time. Instead of dodging away, she moved forward, closer to Krell, inside the range of his staff. The big Gormuth tried to stop his swing, but momentum and his own body weight carried him forward. Maya stood perfectly still, right in his path. At the last second, she placed one hand on his chest. Just a light touch, nothing that looked like an attack. But Krell's own momentum worked against him. His feet tangled, his balance shifted. The hand on his chest was positioned exactly right to guide his fall. He crashed to the ground with a sound like a building collapsing. The arena floor shook from the impact. The crowd gasped. Some stood up in their seats. Nobody could believe what they had just seen. Krell pushed himself up, confusion and anger mixing on his face. You did not do anything. You barely touched me. I did not need to do anything, Maya said calmly. You defeated yourself. Your strength, your anger, your frustration, all of that worked against you. I just gave you a tiny push in the direction you were already going. She walked toward him slowly. Every instinct that Krell had developed through years of fighting told him to get away from her. But he was the champion. He could not show fear. He could not retreat. So he stayed on the ground, watching her approach. My species learned something a long time ago, Maya said. Her voice was loud enough now that the whole arena could hear. The best fight is the one you do not have. Violence should always be the last choice, never the first one. Because violence has costs. Physical costs. Mental costs. Emotional costs. She stopped a few meters away from him. You challenged me because your pride was hurt. You wanted to prove you were stronger. But strength alone is not enough. You need wisdom. You need to understand when to use your strength and when not to. Maya held out her hand to help him up. The gesture surprised everyone, including Krell. He stared at her hand, like it might be a trick. I am not your enemy, Maya said softly. I never was. This whole thing did not need to happen. But since it did happen, I hope you learned something from it. The arena was completely silent. Everyone was waiting to see what Krell would do. The Gormoth looked at Maya's hand, then at her face, then back at her hand. Slowly, with visible effort, he reached out and took it. Maya pulled him to his feet. She was much smaller than him, but she had enough strength to help him stand. Once he was up, she stepped back and gave him space. Zulkar's voice rang out across the arena. Match conclude. The days after the challenge match were strange for Maya. She had expected the other students to avoid her or be afraid of her. Instead, something different happened. They started approaching her with questions. It began the very next day in the cafeteria. Maya was sitting alone at a table, eating her lunch and reading on her datapad. A seer student named Liz walked over and asked if she could sit down. Maya said yes, surprised by the request. That thing you did in the arena, Liz said, her 6 arms moving nervously, making Krell fall without really touching him. How did you learn that? Right. Maya put down her datapad. It is called leverage and momentum. Basic physics. You use your opponent's own force against them. Humans have been using techniques like that for thousands of years. Could you teach me? Liz asked. Before Maya could answer, 2 more students walked over. Then, 3 more. Within minutes, Maya's table was surrounded by students from different species, all asking questions about human combat techniques, about Earth, about how Deathworld species trained and fought. Maya felt overwhelmed at first. She was used to being ignored, not being the center of attention. But she answered their questions as best she could. She talked about martial arts from Earth, about strategy and tactics, about the difference between fighting to win and fighting to survive. By the end of lunch, she had agreed to host an informal study session that evening in one of the common rooms. She expected maybe 5 or 6 students to show up. Instead, 20 came, including Krell. The big Gormoth sat in the back of the room, his arms crossed, saying nothing. But he was there. He was listening. Maya stood at the front of the common room, feeling nervous but trying not to show it. I am not a teacher, she started. I am just a student, like all of you. But I can share what I know about how humans approach combat. She talked for over an hour. She explained that humans were not naturally good fighters. They were not born with armor or claws, or venom, but they had intelligence and the ability to learn. So, they developed systems. Ways of fighting that used technique instead of just strength. The best warrior is not the one who wins every fight, Maya said. The best warrior is the one who avoids unnecessary fights and wins the necessary ones with minimum harm to everyone involved. A Valxian student raised a crystalline hand. But what about when you must fight? What about when there is no choice? Maya's expression became more serious. Then, you commit completely. Humans have a saying about fighting. When we have no choice but to fight, we fight with everything we have. No holding back. No hesitation, because hesitation gets you killed on a death world. She looked around the room at all the different faces watching her. But that is exactly why we try so hard to avoid fighting. We know how terrible it really is. We know the cost. Every human soldier, every warrior in our history, has had to live with what they did. We do not celebrate violence because we understand it too well. The study sessions became regular. 3 times a week, Maya would meet with students who wanted to learn about human combat philosophy. She taught them about famous human military leaders and their strategies, about Sun Tzu, who wrote about winning without fighting, about how humans had fought each other for millennia and slowly learned that violence should be a last resort. Krell attended every session. He sat in the back and rarely spoke, but he was always there. One evening, after everyone else had left, he approached Maya. "I understand now," he said quietly. "What happened in the arena? You did not just defeat me physically. You defeated the idea I had about what strength means." Maya nodded. "Strength is important. Your people are right about that. But strength without wisdom is dangerous. It hurts people unnecessarily. The Gormath culture teaches that might makes right," Krell said. His voice carried something new. Doubt, maybe, or questioning. We are taught to prove ourselves through power, to dominate or be dominated. And yet here you are, Maya pointed out gently, learning from someone a third your size. That takes a different kind of strength. The strength to admit you do not know everything. The strength to change your mind when you learn something new. Krell looked at his massive hands. My father would say I am weak for learning from my defeat. Your father is not here, Maya said. You are. And you get to decide what kind of warrior you want to be. One who only knows how to use power? Or one who knows when to use it? And when not to? The Gormath was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "Will you teach me more? About human combat techniques? Not the fancy moves. The thinking behind it." Maya smiled slightly. "Yes, I can do that." The changes spread beyond just the students. Zulkar modified his entire curriculum for advanced combat theory. He added more lessons about strategy and psychology. Less time on pure fighting techniques, more time on decision-making and understanding opponents. Collins has shown us something important, Zulkar told the class one day. Combat is not just about winning. It is about understanding the entire situation, knowing when to fight, how to fight, and most importantly, when not to fight. One afternoon, Maya was back at the observation deck, looking at the stars. Zulkar found her there. "You have changed my class more in 2 months than I managed in 3 years of teaching," he said. "I just shared a different perspective," Maya replied. "One that my species learned the hard way." "Your planet shaped you," Zulkar observed. "Made you into survivors." Maya nodded. "Every world shapes its people. Earth just happened to be particularly harsh about it. We had to learn to survive. And surviving meant being smart about when to fight and when to run. When to use violence, and when to use our brains instead." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Zulkar asked. "Coming here? Leaving Earth?" Maya thought about the question. "Sometimes. Earth is dangerous, but it is home. The gravity feels right. The air tastes right. Everything here is too clean, too controlled, too safe. But you are making a difference here, Zulkar said. These students, they look at combat differently now because of you. They think before they act. They question, instead of just accepting. That is valuable. I hope so, Maya said quietly. Because the galaxy does not need better fighters. It needs smarter ones. Warriors who understand that the best victory is when everyone walks away alive. Back in the common areas, students were already gathering for the next study session. The attendance had grown every week. Now even students from other classes were coming, wanting to hear about the human perspective on combat and survival. Krell arrived early and helped set up chairs. He had become 3 months had passed since the challenge match. The academy felt different now. Students walked through the halls with more thought in their steps. Combat classes focused as much on strategy and wisdom as on physical technique. The change was subtle, but real. Maya still sat in the back row of advanced combat theory. But now other students sat near her. They asked her questions during breaks. They invited her to study groups and social events. She was no longer furniture. She was part of the community. The biggest change was in Krell. The Gormath champion had become one of Maya's closest friends at the academy. He still attended every study session, but now he participated actively, sharing his own insights and asking thoughtful questions. His entire approach to combat had shifted from domination to understanding. One evening, Krell and Maya were in the gymnasium together, not for combat training, but for what Maya called conditioning. She was teaching him about human endurance training. They ran laps around the large space, side by side despite their size difference. Tell me more about Earth, Krell said as they jogged. He was breathing harder than Maya, but his stamina had improved dramatically over the past few months. What do you want to know? Maya asked. Everything. The animals, the plants, the weather. I want to understand what made humans into what they are. Maya thought about how to explain. Imagine waking up every day knowing that your environment is actively trying to kill you. Not because it hates you, but because that is just how things work. The heat can kill you. The cold can kill you. The rain can turn into floods. The sun can burn your skin. The insects can give you diseases. The water might be poisonous. That sounds horrible, Krell said. It was our normal, Maya replied. We did not know any different. And because of that, we had to become adaptable. We had to learn to survive in every type of environment. Deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, mountains, oceans. Humans spread across the entire planet because we could adapt to anything. They ran in silence for a while. Then Krell asked, Do you miss it? Every day, Maya admitted. But I also know that being here is important. The galaxy needs to understand Earth, not to fear us, but to understand that Deathworld species have lessons worth learning. About survival, about resilience, about not giving up, even when everything seems impossible. After their run, they sat on the gymnasium floor to cool down. Other students were there too, practicing their own training routines. A Valxian was working on flexibility exercises. 2 Seer were practicing coordination drills. Everyone was focused on improvement, rather than just showing off strength. Maya Collins, a voice called out. It was Zulkar, walking across the gymnasium toward them. I need to speak with you in my office. Maya stood up, slightly worried. Is something wrong? No, Zulkar said, but his expression was serious. Please come with me. In the instructor's office, Maya sat in a chair while Zulkar stood by the window, his 4 arms folded behind his back. You have been at this academy for 5 months now, he began. In that time, you have influenced the culture of this institution, more than any student in recent memory. I was just trying to help, Maya said. You did more than help. You changed how we think about combat. About strength. About wisdom. Zulkar turned to face her. The Academy leadership has noticed. They want to expand your informal teaching into something official. Maya felt her heart speed up. What do you mean? They want to create a new course. Combat psychology and Deathworld survival strategies. They want you to help design the curriculum and assist in teaching it. But I am just a student, Maya protested. I am not qualified to teach. You are more qualified than you think, Zulkar said. You understand things that most species never learn because they never had to learn them. That is valuable. That is what education should be about. Maya was quiet, processing this information. Teaching had never been part of her plan. She came to the Academy to learn, to represent Earth, to maybe become a bridge between her world and the rest of the galaxy. But teaching? That was something else entirely. Think about it, Zulkar said. You do not have to decide right now. But know that what you have done here matters. You made warriors think. You made strength bow to wisdom. That is no small achievement. That night, Maya returned to the observation deck. She seemed to end up here whenever she needed to think about something important. The stars were the same as always, distant and unchanging. But everything else had changed so much. She thought about the past 5 months. About sitting quietly in the back of the classroom, trying not to draw attention. About Krell's challenge and the match in the arena. About the study sessions that grew from a handful of curious students to dozens who wanted to learn. About how Krell had gone from her opponent to her friend. Footsteps approached. Maya turned to see Krell walking toward her. The big Gormoth had learned to move more quietly now. But she always knew when he was coming. I thought I would find you here, Krell said, standing beside her at the window. Just thinking, Maya said. About the teaching position? When Maya looked surprised, Krell smiled. Zulkar told me. He wanted my opinion on whether you should do it. What did you tell him? I told him you already are a teacher. Making it official just gives you a bigger classroom. Krell looked out at the stars. You changed my life, Maya. You showed me that being strong is not enough. That real strength comes from knowing when to use your power and when not to. I was heading down a bad path, believing that might makes right. You saved me from that. Maya felt uncomfortable with the praise. I just did what anyone would do. No, Krell said firmly. You did what a human would do. What a Deathworlder would do. You survived by being smarter, not stronger, and you shared that wisdom with everyone around you. That is rare. That is special. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two very different beings, from two very different worlds, connected by lessons learned the hard way. I think I will accept the teaching position, Maya said finally. If they really want me to do it, they do, Krell assured her. And so do all the students who have learned from you. We need your perspective. The galaxy needs it. In the weeks that followed, Maya worked with Zulkar and other instructors to design the new course. It would cover topics like resource management under stress, psychological resilience, decision-making in dangerous situations, and understanding different combat philosophies from across the galaxy. The first official class was held in the same circular arena classroom where Maya had first spoken up months ago. But this time, instead of sitting in the back row, she stood at the front, beside Zulkar. The room was packed with students, including many who had attended her informal study sessions. This course will challenge how you think about combat, Zulkar announced to the class. It will not make you better fighters in the traditional sense. It will make you better warriors, wiser warriors. Warriors who understand that strength must be tempered with intelligence and compassion. He gestured to Maya. Your assistant instructor is Cadet Maya Collins from Earth. She brings a perspective that few in the galaxy possess. Listen to her. Learn from her. Question her. That is how we all grow. Maya stepped forward. She felt nervous but also excited. This was important. This mattered. My planet tried to kill me every day I lived there, she began. And because of that, I learned lessons that I want to share with you. Not to make you afraid of Earth or of humans, but to help you understand that survival is about more than strength or speed or weapons. It is about thinking, planning, adapting, and most importantly, knowing when to fight and when to walk away. She looked around the room at all the different faces watching her. Valxians, Gormath, Seer, and a dozen other species, all here to learn. The best victory is not the one where you destroy your enemy. It is the one where everyone survives, and everyone learns something. That is what my planet taught me. That is what I want to teach you. The semester continued. Maya taught and learned at the same time. She discovered that every species had something valuable to contribute, some unique perspective shaped by their home world and their evolution. The Valxians, who lived on a world of crystal formations, taught about patience and precise timing. The Seer, from a planet with complex terrain, taught about spatial awareness and coordination. And the humans, from Earth, taught about endurance, about never giving up, about turning disadvantages into advantages through clever thinking and sheer, stubborn determination. Krell became something like a teaching assistant, helping Maya connect with students who struggled with the concepts. His transformation from aggressive fighter to thoughtful warrior became a teaching example itself. If someone as strong and proud as Krell could change, anyone could. One day, as Maya was reviewing lesson plans in the library, she received a message on her datapad. It was from Earth, from the Human Diplomatic Corps. They had heard about what she was doing at the academy. They were proud of her. She was representing humanity well, showing the galaxy that humans were not just survivors, but teachers and philosophers too. Maya read the message 3 times, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had not known what her role would be when she came to the academy. She thought she would just be another student, maybe graduating with decent marks and returning to Earth to work in some diplomatic or military position. Instead, she had found her purpose. Teaching, sharing, building bridges between Earth and the rest of the galaxy, one lesson at a time. The quiet girl who sat in the back of combat class had discovered that sometimes the best way to win is not through fighting, but through understanding. And sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who know when to put down their weapons and pick up their words instead. Earth had taught humanity to survive. Now Maya was teaching the galaxy what survival really meant. Not domination, not conquest, but adaptation, wisdom, and the stubborn refusal to give up no matter how difficult things became. And in the circular classroom where it all began, students from across the galaxy listened and learned. Because the lessons from a death world were valuable not because they taught violence, but because they taught something far more important. They taught hope, they taught resilience, they taught that no matter how hostile your environment, no matter how impossible the odds, intelligent beings could survive and even thrive through determination, cooperation, and wisdom. The Deathworlder girl had sat quietly in combat class. Then she had changed everything without ever needing to throw a punch. Because that was the real strength of humanity. Not the ability to fight, but the wisdom to know when fighting was unnecessary and the creativity to find better solutions. And the galaxy was better for learning that lesson. Something like an assistant to Maya, using his size and strength for practical purposes rather than just fighting. When other students had questions about applying human techniques to their own species' combat styles, Krell would often help explain, drawing on his own experience, learning from Maya. The quiet girl who had sat in the back of the classroom for 3 weeks had changed the entire academy's approach to combat training. Not through violence or demonstrations of power, but through patience, wisdom, and a willingness to teach. Because that was the real lesson Earth had taught humanity. Survival was not about being the strongest. It was about being the smartest, the most adaptable, and the most willing to learn from every experience. Ed. Winner by technical submission. Collins. But nobody cheered. Nobody made any sound at all. They were all thinking about what they had just witnessed. The human had won, without throwing a single punch. Without using any fancy techniques or special powers. She had simply let Krell defeat himself, then offered him help getting back up. Maya turned and walked toward the exit. She did not look proud or happy. She looked tired, like someone who had just done something difficult but necessary. As she passed Zulkar, the instructor gave her a small nod of approval. Krell stood in the center of the arena, watching her leave. His expression was complicated. Angry, yes. Embarrassed, definitely. But also thoughtful. Maybe even a little bit respectful. The match was over. But for everyone who watched it, the real lesson was just beginning. Athworld. Show them what real combat looks like when it is done by someone who truly understands it. Maya looked at him. You want me to hurt him? I want you to educate him. Zulkar corrected. How you do that is up to you. But I trust you to find a way that makes the point without causing permanent damage. After Zulkar left, Maya stayed on the observation deck for another hour. She thought about Earth, about the humans who had come before her, about all the hard lessons her species had learned over millions of years of evolution. Tomorrow she would step into that arena. Tomorrow she would face Krell in front of the entire academy. And tomorrow she would show them all something they had never seen before, not because she wanted to, but because sometimes the only way to teach peace is to demonstrate exactly how terrible the alternative can be. All groups, talking and laughing about the matches. Krell left without looking at Maya. But she could feel his anger still hanging in the air, like smoke. Maya stood up from the bench and walked toward the exit. She did not go to Zulkar's office like he had told her to. Instead, she went somewhere else. Somewhere quiet where she could think about what had just happened and what was probably going to happen next. Because she knew Krell. Not personally, but she knew his type. She had met people like him on Earth. People who measured their worth by their strength. People who could not accept that there might be something more important than power. And she knew that this was not over. Not even close. But something had changed in the room. It was a small change, almost invisible. The quiet girl in the back row had spoken. She had reminded everyone that she was there. That she could talk. That she had thoughts and opinions about combat. And for reasons that none of them fully understood yet, that felt important. That felt like the beginning of something. Maya kept writing in her notebook, her expression calm and neutral. She looked the same as she always did. But now, the other students were aware of her in a way they had not been before. The furniture had reminded them that it was not furniture at all. It was something else. Something they did not understand yet. Something from a death world where survival was not just important, it was everything.